Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating framework all about the nature of choices, opportunity costs, and the metaphorical paths we take in life. We're looking directly at a pretty thought-provoking text by Guy Zhifeng, who's the founder of Life Genuine. Now, regardless of your own personal worldview, the way Guy Zhifeng structures this whole concept of human choice is just structurally fascinating. It really challenges how we think about the paths we commit to. As we go through these slides together, we're going to break down his exact arguments, looking at everything from everyday decisions to cosmic architecture, and finally his very specific views on human morality.
Okay, let's dive into this with a metaphor from the text that I think we can all instantly visualize. Guy Zhifeng starts with a simple image of a movie theater, right? When the credits roll and the lights come up, several exit doors of the cinema are thrown open. But no matter how much you might want to, you are physically bound by one reality. You can only walk out through one door at a time. It is literally impossible to exit through two doors simultaneously. And on the flip side, you can't enter through two doors at once either. It sets up the baseline rule for this entire text. True choice requires mutual exclusivity.
So from that incredibly relatable, everyday example of a cinema, the text immediately scales all the way up to the cosmic level. Guy Zhifeng asserts this very specific mathematical architecture to existence itself. He states that in the entire universe, there are exactly 36 of these metaphorical doors. Not infinite paths, not some random assortment, but a rigid, absolute structure of exactly 36 doors that govern all possibilities. Let's bring that down to Earth and see how this builds for us specifically. Out of those 36 universal doors, the author states that humanity is only granted access to exactly 12. Yep, just 12 doors are available for human beings to enter and exit. It's a profound limitation for sure, but it's also a real distillation of the human experience. Because according to this framework, every single life, every single destiny ultimately funnels into one of these 12 primary doors.
And now we arrive at the core mechanic of this entire philosophy, what we can call the cosmic rule. And let me tell you, it is completely rigid. Guy Zhifeng explains that these 12 doors are always open, meaning we constantly possess the right to choose. However, the exact second you select and step through one door, bam, the other 11 automatically slam shut. You cannot straddle the threshold. But here's the crucial and maybe somewhat comforting counterbalance. The moment you choose to close your current door, the remaining 11 automatically spring open for you again.
And this brilliantly illustrates how this cosmic rule isn't just abstract philosophy. It mimics the very real friction of our daily lives. The author uses two highly practical examples. Imagine standing on an airport tarmac with dozens of planes. You have to pick one flight, right? You can't fly to London and Tokyo simultaneously. Or consider a student who just passed their exams. They might have the grades for dozens of universities, but when enrollment day comes, they must select just one from the catalog. Selecting one inherently eliminates all the others.
To really drive home how deeply this concept of absolute, mutually exclusive choice is embedded in the human experience, Guy Zhifeng actually cites this traditional proverb. It reflects an ancient, deep-seated anxiety about opportunity cost. Because when you commit to a profession or when you commit to a lifelong partner, you are essentially walking through one of those doors, knowing full well that you are locking out alternative lives. It's the heavy burden of consequence. Which brings us to Section 1, the 9 Virtues Paradox. Now brace yourselves, because the text is about to seriously challenge traditional views on human values. If you thought picking a university was tough, Guy Zhifeng applies this exact same mutually exclusive logic to human morality. Take a look at this matrix. Traditional cultures always tell you to cultivate the 9 classic virtues, things like truth, virtue, law, and benevolence. But Zhifeng says that's actually impossible. Notice the chain of absolute restraint here. If you choose Tao, which is truth, you lose Da, which is virtue. If you choose Fa, or law, you sacrifice Ren, benevolence. You simply cannot possess them simultaneously.
The author takes a very strict stance here to ensure there's absolutely no misunderstanding. He writes that these virtues are not a 9-course banquet on a table where you can just freely pick and choose and combine whatever dishes you like. In fact, Guy Zhifeng argues that if someone claims to possess both Dao and De simultaneously, that person is operating under a fake signboard. It is just an illusion. Within this specific framework, possessing one virtue mandates the sacrifice of its opposing counterpart.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the massive disparity here. Guide Shufeng is entirely self-aware of how controversial this is. He actually predicts that 99% of people will completely disagree with this paradox. Most folks will stubbornly believe they can achieve moral completeness. But Shufeng argues that this misunderstanding, this refusal to accept the mutually exclusive nature of these 9 dishes, is precisely the root cause of complexity and chaos in human history.
Moving right along to Section 2, the courage to change. Let's bring this down to the individual level and look at recognizing your current reality.
So, having laid out this massive structure of the universe, Xuefeng brings the funnel all the way down to you, the individual. He uses these stark social contrasts to prove that your current metaphorical door strictly defines your reality. If you choose the door of being a thief, you cannot be a gentleman. If you choose the door of being a corrupt official, you cannot be a true representative of the people. Even on a purely occupational level, a peasant is not simultaneously a factory worker. Your reality is entirely, completely bound by the parameters of the door you are currently standing inside.
And this leads to what the text identifies as the ultimate psychological trap. Guide Xufeng observes that many people are fully aware of which door they are in, and they know full well that their current door is filled with suffering and distress, yet they stay. Why? Well, because they lack the courage to close it. They're terrified that if they shut this painful door, they're going to be left in the dark with nowhere else to go. But remember that cosmic rule we discussed earlier? The text argues this fear is entirely unnecessary. The very second you shut the door of suffering, the other 11 doors automatically open.
And that brings us to Section 3, the ultimate destination. Where exactly do these doors lead?
So, the crucial point is summarized right here. If we accept the premise that we must find the courage to leave the doors that cause us suffering, where are we supposed to go? Shufeng reminds us that while millions of individual paths exist, they all inevitably funnel into just 12 ultimate human doors. And he warns that delaying your choice will ruin your life. Because while all roads might lead to Rome, the author stresses that not all roads lead to heaven. Many lead directly to hell. The stakes are incredibly high.
And this is where Guide Xuefeng presents his ultimate thesis. He defines his organization, Life Chen Yuan, as being precisely one of those 12 available doors. According to his specific framework, stepping through this particular door is the path that primarily leads to what he calls the 1,000-year world. So this is the ultimate spiritual destination that the author is advocating for within the rigid architecture of choices he just outlined.
Whether you personally agree with the ultimate destination of Life Chen Yuan or completely reject the paradox of the 9 virtues, the underlying mechanics of Guide Xufeng's essay offer a really fascinating lens to view our lives through. It forces us to confront the harsh reality of opportunity cost. So we're going to leave you with the very question this text demands of its readers. If you look honestly at your life right now, which door are you currently standing inside? And if it's not the right one, do you have the courage to close it so the others can open? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and we will catch you next time.